The cringe is beginning. What's up, buddies? Welcome back to another epi for the pre-launch of FIFA 21. I hope you guys have enjoyed the double uploads in the last day or so. The day 1 and day 2 starter squad video did incredibly well. I actually am very happy to see how many of you guys are just enjoying discussion point content like that, looking at your guys' 5 or 10,000 coin starter squads. I think it was very, very fun. And then mixing in like my advice and thoughts on how and what maybe you could be doing to maximize your time on your no FIFA point road to glory. I think that was a really, really fun thing to do. So for today's epi, it's all about week 1 FUT champs. So that should be 2 or 3 weeks into the game. So today it's going to be about looking at your guys's week 1 or first ever FUT champ squads. I've put a limit about of 100 to 150,000 coins in squad value for week 1 FUT champs. I think grinding the game for 2 or 3 weeks, you should very easily be able to build up 100 to 150,000 coins to spend on a weekend league squad for the first weekend, bringing in squad battles, grinding, bringing in any of like the FUT objective grinds, division rivals, and then just chipping away at SBCs, advanced SBCs, and all that stuff. Should be very easy to come up with that. Even as a semi-casual player, I think 2 or 3 weeks of work, that shouldn't be too far and away from the possibilities, or the realm of possibilities. And I hope to show you guys, obviously, how to do that, even on my ultimate road to glory, in terms of how to start building up your coins and your balances and where and what you should be putting your time into. So, without further wait, because now I'm getting roasted for saying adieu too much. Without further wait, let's get into the episode. Smash the like button if you are excited for yet another one. And real quick, the double upload, of course, was around Icon SBCs being back for FIFA 21 Ultimate Team. So, I was immediately very excited at that being back. Icon swaps being back for the casuals, again, I think is good. A lot of people that grind the game, or even play the game casually or enjoy gameplay more, having the ability to earn some icons for themselves is a good thing. And then, of course, Icon SBCs being back for those hardcore grinders like me and you guys is a good thing as well. I will note, and I think within that episode or within that review of the news of Icon SBCs, I kind of covered that there are going to be some potential issues. The fact that Icon SBCs can be time limited, the fact that EA already are saying that there's no guarantee that any and all Icon SBCs will be out, or their timestamps. So there are issues. Again, if we got to wait for a Ronaldinho to come out until June, that's going to be terrible, and no one's going to care about that. And then even worse is if you got to wait until June and they release like a baby icon, or a baby Ronaldinho, right? His 89 rated version. So there are some pitfalls with Icon SBCs, just like there are pitfalls with icon swaps. I think icon swaps for grinders is actually a relatively big waste of time in terms of the return you get on time invested, personally. But for each grouping of players, I think each system can work. I think it's just gonna have to be, we got to see what EA actually do with the swap. So just wanted to make a note of that, because my mentions and the comments and stuff like that about my Icon SBC video has people almost irritated that I'm so positive about it. There are definitely going to be some issues, and we'll find more as the game is actually released. So the first squad to look at, easily going to be under 100k, is a team that features Rodrigo on 8 chemistry. Now, I've decided to include in these week 1 FUT champs squads some squads that are more expensive and some squads that are too cheap, because I have certain discussion points I want to have with you guys about these teams. I think this one is very fair. I don't actually see a single position that's going to be overly expensive outside of Lucas, and even then for Lucas and Rodrigo, it'll keep us well under 100k. So I think this is a good starting point. I think the only issue with this team is that your midfield has no type of defensive minded players, which could be a problem, but it's just a starting point, and I think something that's very possible to put together. Into the second team, I think, again, this is very good for a FUT champ starter squad, and I like the fact that this person is putting a big chunk of money into a finisher in Richarlison. Don't get it twisted. This Richarlison will be very expensive, even by the time the first weekend league comes around. I still think, though, he'll be absolutely fantastic. Obviously, the expensive ones are going to be Richarlison, Alisson, Militao, and Diego Carlos. So this could be pushing the peak of the 150k price point, the 100 to 150k price point, but I still think it's possible. I don't know if you guys would agree or disagree with that. Bringing the price down because of Bori Gold and Talisca, Tyson, and Rafinha. And then maybe Renan Lodi might be a little bit expensive, but I don't see Traore or Neto breaking the bank too much. So I think for a squad, and then especially if you shift into, what would you use this team as? Would you use it as a 4-3-3 setup, or you could even consider maybe using a 4-2-3-1 with Alan as the holding DM, Borigod as the box to box, and I guess you then use Talisca as a central cam. He might be a bit clunky at 6'3" as a central cam, though. So the other thing you could consider doing is maybe running a 4-1-2-1-2 team, right? Central DM, wide left, wide right for center mids, and then maybe have Tyson and Richarlison as the strikers and Rafinha as the cam. I think this team will do very well for you. Anyways, moving on. I like this team too. Again, I'm finding these squads to be very original that my viewer base is putting together for our week 1 weekend league run. I like this a lot. A lot of people might argue that Thiago could be a waste because he'll be expensive. This is something else that I wanted to touch base on too here, okay? Not only will he be expensive, but I don't even think this Thiago could be available by the time weekend league week 1 comes around, because he has been confirmed by EA as a one to watch. And as you know, when a player is available as a one to watch, his regular card not only won't be in packs, but even if he's in packs, he'll have been in packs for only a couple of days. So his price is going to be super overpriced. So I like the look of this team. I find the rest of this team very cheap. What I appreciate about this team is that it's a usable cheap team with like 1 or 2 really expensive, or way more expensive than the rest of the players in Jota and Thiago. And I kind of like that. I like when someone puts a good chunk of money into an attacker. I find that to be the most important position in the game. So another option for you guys there, although consider, for those of you that are building squads with like a Ziyech or something like that, just remember that a lot of these guys are going to be one to watches. So you thinking you'll be able to fit them into like a day 1 starter squad, or you think you'll be able to fit them into a week 1 weekend league team, you might have to rebuild the setup based off of if the players are still in into one to watches. So moving on to our next weekend league squad for under 100k, I think, is the Serie A inspired hybrid with a Bundesliga backline. As always, the common setup of Salvio and Montiel. I think realistically, in terms of high price players, you're only looking at Rebic, Raja, and maybe Upamecano, Scholes, and Hazard. This 5 set of players could be a bit expensive, but even then, I still think this will be very affordable for 100 to 150k. Rebic is a beast, especially if you run a 4-1-2-1-2, so you're basically running like Raja Nainggolan as the CDM, Rabiot and Kessie as the box to boxes, and then what would you do here? I guess Rebic and Salvio as the strikers, and maybe Hazard as the central cam with that 81 passing. Why not? Right? That's a pretty sweet little setup. Anyways, I personally like this team. I thought it was a really cool hybrid, and definitely within the price point that I've set for week 1 weekend league. Moving on, this one I wanted to put into this epi real quick for you guys. I'm not going to last too long on this. What I would say is I actually think this team, a lot of people would look at this on paper and say, oh wow, that's actually, not a bad setup. I actually do think it's a good team. One thing I will have you guys consider, though, is try not to just depend on what was OP in FIFA 20, right? And I think, again, FIFA 21 could be a hell of a lot different in that regard. And what I mean by that is it's clear that in terms of the attacking option, this person that built this squad is more interested in high pace than actual finishing and passing. So I feel like in FUT champs, if you're coming up against someone that's semi-decent, you create 1 or 2 good teams, good scoring chances. You don't have a high chance of scoring them with 70 shooting and 69 shooting. So consider trying to get yourselves a little bit better finishers. I think that's going to work out well. I'm hoping the meta isn't just pace again this year and counterattacks. I'll be so disappointed if we have the same meta that we had for FIFA 20, which, considering COVID is a thing, I don't know if they've made many jumps and leaps in terms of gameplay changes. Anyways, I wanted to include this in here because this is definitely under 100k for a weekend league week 1 team. Obviously, the expensive players could be Coutinho, Vinicius, and Fred. I don't really see the backline being expensive, and it blows my mind that Doucouré got a downgrade. I find that so disrespectful. I not only do I find him a beast of a player, but I don't think he deserved a downgrade year in, year out. What was he, 80 rated last year? Silly. So moving on. This team, I just love the look of this team. This is going to cause some discussion points here in terms of the Serie A hybrid. I love it. I think Morata, especially with that 4-star weak foot, and Rebic as a front line is going to be fantastic. I think Hakimi as a wide player, as a right mid, is absolutely great as well. You get the defensive options there. You get obviously a good bit of shooting and passing. So I think he's fantastic. Tonali and Llorente are amazing. I believe Johnny is no longer at Lazio. So this might be something you'd have to consider here. But every part of this team I think is great. So the discussion point is, and I made a bet with my Twitch viewers because a few people, one guy specifically said, there's no way that this Manolas isn't 150K minimum. 30K maybe? I would say a stretch. Remember, we're talking 3 weeks into the game. By Weekend League 1, I would say it's a stretch that he's above 30 or 40K. Anyways, I said that if that guy was right, and if he was 150K by Weekend League 1, that I would happily give away 10 subs. So that is exactly what we're going to do. But I think, personally, Manolas is not cheap. I'm not saying he's going to be cheap, but I think Manolas, Llorente, and Rebic, maybe Hakimi, are going to be the expensive players. The rest of them, right, even this, well, Bruno Perez is probably going to be a bit expensive too. Either way, I think with the rest of these players, this team isn't over 100 to 150K. I really don't think so. So, having said that, I personally love it. I love Tonali and Llorente through the midfield. I actually believe Johnny is maybe the biggest issue, right? As a left mid, you want someone to give you the defensive options as well, not just, you know, well, actually, he's just a average at best player, isn't he, really? So I don't know. A few people were saying there are a couple of options outside of Johnny. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but maybe consider someone that looks more like a Hakimi. I'm not saying they need 94 pace, but having better defensive stats would be good. I like this team though. It's probably one of my favorite ones out of all of the Weekend League Week 1 squads. Speaking of one of my favorites, this is definitely another one, and I truly do believe the Bundesliga for early FUT champs is going to be a very, very, very positive and very used squad setup. So I love this team. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Lamer, Chan, Klosterman, Akanji, and Schulz will be very expensive. There's no denying that. Again, I don't believe they're going to be crazy. This is what I'm going to say. To a lot of people that are saying Klosterman is going to be like 50K, don't forget, last year, Joe Gomez, who was a fantastically good card as well, especially early on, as far as I can remember, he did not peak above, and this is a Premier League English player with similar stats, I would say. Some better stats, maybe paced a little bit lower, but nevertheless, he barely peaked at 10K. 8, 9, maybe 10K, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Klosterman will only be 10K, but I do think at some points, people in our FIFA community have a tendency to supremely undervalue player prices near the start of the game. But then also what I'm starting to see right now, like someone was saying this 83 Sabitzer is going to be 40K, man. He's not. He's not going to be 40K. He's definitely not. He looks great, but he's not going to be 40K. 10K? Sure. Maybe even 15K the first little bit. But I would personally say, put it this way. I love the look of this team. I think Emre Can is going to be worth a lot. I think Lamer's going to be worth a lot. I think Klosterman is going to be worth a lot. Those are the ones I think will truly be worth a lot of money. I think Akanji, Schulz, and Sabitzer, and maybe even Rashica will be a bit expensive. And then maybe Tolisso too. And then Mbolo and Meunier and even Berkey won't be all that much money. So for how good that team looks, I would happily say that's going to be 100 to 150K to put together. And I really like the look of that team. In fact, maybe for week 1, we do a Bundesliga like 100K squad for FUT champs. Or maybe I just run Johan Cruyff and Hullet and enjoy myself. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see. It all depends on what players are available come week 1 of Weekend League. Moving on. Another very cool team. So if you look at this team, you might say, oh, this is really weird. Player positions are in weird places, but this is what I was saying about being smart with how you build out a team, right? You don't necessarily need to have each player in each position, just like most people would have figured out for FIFA 20. I love this team, and I'm going to start saying this a lot, but this is another one of, I think, my most favorite hybrids of the setup. So the way you build this team out is actually you start like this, and then you switch into a 4-1-2-1-2. So you put G Bamin at DM, You put Kessie at right center mid, and then, very similar to Armalika's day one starter squad, you put Goossens in the midfield at left center mid. So Goossens and Kessie as box-to-box mids in a 4-1-2-1-2, G. Baman as the DM, then you've got Julian Brandt as the cam, and then Greenwood and Rebic as a duo at striker for a week one FUT Champs team. I think that's fantastic. I really, really like it. So I just think this is a cool team, and I would almost argue, outside of maybe Julian Brandt, and even then, outside of Rebic, maybe Greenwood, G. Baman's going to be pretty expensive just purely because of the pace, and he's like a well-rounded card. And maybe Schultz. This team doesn't get near even 100K, does it? Even looking at these players, right? Would you argue? Nevertheless, I love it, and I think this is a great team and a really efficient way of spreading out your coins to put together a strong team. If you're a good FIFA player, I feel like this setup in a 4-1-2-1-2, you will do very, very, very well. Very well with it. So moving on. This is another one that I wanted to chit chat with you guys about, and more so to give you my thoughts. I definitely think that this is at least 100 to 150K squad, but when you look at this team, do you not look at that Bundesliga setup or even that little hybrid that we just looked at to be 10 times better than this? So what I feel is early on, and I think it's almost a thing every single year in FIFA, Premier League teams are just not value for money. And where you look at this, and I guarantee you that this team will make up almost 100K, kind of silly as well that you're using Diogo Jota, who probably will be worth a big chunk of money as a left mid. So wasted. Rodrigo, not saying that he won't be good and useful, but he's going to be worth a lot, man. Even Wilson, Almiron, like Lamella looks average. Yedlin is going to be expensive purely because people look at his pace rating. Nathan Ake and Bailly, sure, could be all right, but they're going to be overpriced. Fred is going to be overpriced, and as a DM, he's got high work rates. Tierney's going to be overpriced, and Leno's going to be overpriced. So I just wanted to pull this team together. I absolutely don't think this is a good squad. I just wanted to give you guys an example of why maybe if I was you, unless you're absolutely an adorer of the Premier League, I would say maybe keep the Premier League to like your FUT Champs week 2 or 3 or 4 teams where you've got more money to burn. By that point, it'll be like a month into the game, maybe even a month and a half into the game, and prices for like a Rodrigo will go from being 15 or 20K down to probably not cheap, but he'll be down to maybe 7K or 8K and stuff like that, right? Maybe a Diogo Jota will go from 30K or 40K to 10K or even less. So it just might be a little bit more valuable later on to start using the Premier League teams. I think Serie A, Bundesliga, maybe even some Ligue 1 stuff would be a better option for your week 1 weekend league teams, but it's just my opinion. Moving on. And speaking of, cool hybrids and the off leagues, if you will, outside of the Premier League, I love these few teams that we have in here that are 3 at the back. They look so great. And this to me is another one. I love the whole team. Very easily, this team's going to be like 60, 70, even 80K. Not that expensive. I think your most expensive players are going to end up being João Felix, Carrasco, Llorente, and maybe Hakimi. Well, the backline might not be that cheap. Nevertheless, I love it. I would say the only weak point in this team, this is another one, boys. Armalika, you told me the player's name. This is what I was talking about, having useful wide players. So once again, Hakimi out wide here is going to be fantastic. The biggest problem in the team is, of course, going to be matches. So if there is someone that is better at left mid with like 75 defending, I would go for him. Outside of that, I love the team. The only other thing you're going to have to consider with people using Hakimi is that I believe he's in one to watches week 1. So by the time the first FUT Champs comes out, he'll be in packs as a regular gold, but it'll only be for a week. So again, Hakimi's price might be a little bit more than is sensible. Mark Cucurella is the left mid. There you go. Yeah, so Cucurella. Can I have a quick look at him? Cucurella. This guy. Here you go. So that is who I would put. I know he doesn't have the pace, but that's who I would put in that team at left mid because he's way more well-rounded, almost being able to use him as a left wing back in that formation, right? You turn the team into a 5 at the back when you need it, and then it becomes an attacking 3 at the back. So that was the squad. Thank you very much. That was my Twitch chat bailing me out there. So moving on. Here's another one. Here's another example. I'm sorry, the Premier League is my favorite league in the world. Obviously, Leeds United are in it, so it might sound like I'm just shitting on Premier League squads, but here it is again. Like, I look at this team, and not only do I find it so overpriced and so average, This is another thing, and this was a discussion point I wanted to bring forward. I personally think people are out of their mind when they are going to be spending 83 rated Gomez. He's going to be worth a lot. And Reguilon, he's going to be worth a lot. When people are spending the huge chunk of their coins on a defender setup instead of on their attackers, I think you're personally doing the squad building wrong. I would rather have your team be a little bit more balanced, as opposed to like a big chunk of your money being lopsided on your center backs and on a left mid Diogo Jota, right? Of course. I think I'd rather see people spend more money on their attackers. That's just my thought process. So 2 points to make here. Personally think it's better to spend on attackers and then attacking mids first, then expensive defenders like this team is. Second, I think it's better to use different leagues than the Premier League, because for what you're paying for 100 to 150k here, this team seems, I don't know, just not good enough. Put it that way. So a perfect example of, again, spreading it out, at least in terms of the attack, is this team. This team, I think a lot of people would make an argument that it's going to be way more than 150k. I still think you should be able to put this together for 150k. I think people will look at maybe Fernandinho and think he's going to be overpriced, but with 64 pace, I don't think he'll be that much. Fred, Kovacic, and Lo Celso, where they look kind of all right to use, again, I don't know if they'll be that expensive. Especially, got to think, right? This is like 2-3 weeks into the game for the first weekend league. But yeah, Di Maria, Martinez, and even Perisic are going to be expensive. What I would love to see with this team, though, is switching to a 4-1-2-1-2, and this is why I wanted to bring it up. You go Martinez and Perisic once again together as strikers, and then Di Maria in behind. I know he's got a 2-star weak foot, but he'll be as close as you can get to Messi early days. And I think he'd be really fun. And then having, you know, Fred as a DM, and then Lo Celso and Kovacic as box-to-box mids. I don't know. I just think that team looks cool. You can maybe argue that it's a bit more expensive than 150k, but I do like it. So another example of the Premier League just being a silly league to go with. This is a viewer put together a 150k squad that is obviously a Chelsea-based setup. But once again, don't forget, guys, someone like Ziyech, someone like Havertz will probably not even be available for a while. So a lot of you would argue, oh yeah, you know, they're going to be 50k or whatever their price is going to be. They might be even more because they're not even going to be in packs. And if they are in packs, they might have been in packs for like a day, right? So, or two. So, and just to me, for like what this team is going to cost expense-wise, it's going to be so overpriced for a bang average team, in my opinion. Anyways, so we move. Another, I would say, very well-rounded team. I like this one a lot. Obviously, as we mentioned for the starter squads video, I think full nations teams could be the way to go, even for your week one weekend league teams. A perfect example is look at this French team. And also, what I love about French teams is, let's even say through the weekend, right? You've got this squad, maybe you've got like 20k extra, but you're like, there's nobody really to spend it on. So you're going through weekend league. Maybe you're using this team in a 4-1-2-1-2, or maybe using it in a 4-2-3-1, or whatever you're using this team in. But you're noticing that you were hoping that Gamero was going to be really good, and he's awful. All right, you're 8 games in now. Oh wait, I got 30k, I got 35k. The beauty is you're not sitting there with like a super strict hybrid where you're like stuck with a player. You can be like, okay, let me pull Gamero out and let me bring the Benzema in. Now Benzema will probably be 100k, but just as an example, what I love about full nation squads is that you can bring in and out. Taylor, can you stop with constantly saying every squad is going to be a crazy overpriced team? Do you understand that this is a weekend league week one team for 100 to 150k? I hope there's not going to be an exorbitant amount of people, like, for some reason thinking that I'm talking about a day one team here. This is like 2 to 3 weeks into the game. If you think a 100k team is overpriced, you play the game wrong. I'm sorry. Anyways, moving on. I think personally that this team is actually a very well-balanced team. I actually don't think anybody in this team is going to be overly expensive outside of Coman and maybe Camara and maybe Upamecano. But I think everybody else is going to be bang average. Even Tolisso, I think, is going to be bang average price. Maybe 5, 10k. You know, he's 80 rated, right? So it's not even that he's 83 rated anymore. So, moving on, I like it. I just wanted to use this team as a reference in terms of full national teams. I think it easily fits in the 100k requirement. And then again, another almost full national team is just to show you guys how spicy of a Portuguese inspired team you can put together. Felix might be a bit overpriced. I mean, Renato Sanchez might be a bit overpriced. Telles, Atal, and Jota might be a bit overpriced, but nevertheless, I look at this team and I think you can easily put it together for 100K. Number one. Number two, I just think it's a cool team. I think Renato Sanchez will be incredible as a box-to-box. I think Pereira will be all right, or usable at least for a while as a DM. João Felix, I suppose you'd use him as a central cam. And then Origi as a striker, Martins and Jota as the wide players as well, I think would be absolutely fantastic. So I love it. I love it. I think this team is cool, and it's just something a little bit different. The only issue is, once again, is unlike the full nation team, if you notice that like Divock Origi is trash, you don't have that many options unless you're going to go shell out the money on like a Bobby Firmino, or unless there's a good Portuguese striker that isn't Cristiano Ronaldo, you know, available to bring in. Anyways, I thought this team was cool, easily under the 100K. Here's another weird one. Once again, I wanted to bring this together because I feel like, to me, this squad is easily going to be within the price point for a week one weekend league team. I just, again, really am surprised that so many people in this community think that pace is going to be all you need out wide, and you go cheap with the front players, but then you go super expensive with the like midfield backline. Ndidi is going to be worth a fortune. Donny van de Beek is going to be worth a fortune. Reguilon is going to be worth a fortune. Bellerin's going to be worth a fortune. You know for sure Nathan Ake is going to be worth a fortune. So once again, to me, I feel like spending all of your money on your DMs and your center backs is just a backwards way of building out your team. If you guys think otherwise, maybe you think defense first is important in FUT champs based off of our experiences for FIFA 20. That's fine. Feel free to let me know in the comments, or obviously in the Twitch chat if you want to as well. But I just think it's better to put your money towards the guys that are going to get you the goals. That's what I believe. So moving on. Another fantastic team showing you how great Bundesliga, La Liga teams are. I love this setup. I think one of the things you're going to notice here for the Bundesliga is that there's a huge lack of right wingers once you start getting to like those weekend league squads. Lots of really good left mids, not that great right mids. So what I would say, maybe depending on price, is consider using a Thorgan Hazard here on 7 chem as opposed to a Bellarabi. I think a Thorgan Hazard would be even better. And once again, if you switch into a 4-1-2-1-2 here, I think Hazard as a central cam and then Bailey and Embolo as strikers would be great. And I just think this team is fantastic, man. I really do. I think it's so great. Your DM and Delaney is amazing. Your midfielders and Emre Can and Tolisso are fantastic. I guess put it this way, I would look at these players, and if these players were in the Premier League, dude, if Delaney was in the Premier League, he'd be 10 times the price. Well, Emre Can is already going to be expensive, but if you put this card in the Prem, my God. Again, 5, 6, 7 times the price of what he's going to be in the Bundesliga. So I think this team is great, easily at that 100K price point. Again, I think I like this team a little bit more, going a little bit cheap with some of the attackers. But I really like this for a 100K weekend league team. You got Richarlison and Felipe Anderson in there. They're going to be worth a fortune. And outside of that, I actually think nothing else is going to be crazy expensive. Ake, Fred, Quincy Promes could be a bit pricey, but everything else is not too bad. So I like this team where they're putting the money into the attackers. I guess that's the nice segue into what I was talking about defensively. Is I would rather see someone do this. I think you're going to have more success doing that right now. Okay, so moving on. I wanted to leave this one in here because I feel like people, this is I guess an example of the flip side of things. I feel like people are not really realizing how expensive certain players are going to be. If we're talking about 100K or like max 150K weekend League 1 squad, Dembele will probably be that price on his own, right? I think it's fair to say, even as an 83, he's probably going to be close to 100K, right? Would you argue that? So maybe not the other guys. I think Upamecano, Camara, even Coutinho, obviously João Felix will be expensive, but I just think you guys might have to rethink this type of stuff. He was 50K last year, and what was he last year? He was like an 84? What was he? He was an 84. Now he's a left winger too, right? So it kind of changes the options a bit. He was 60K, 70K. Okay. Well, there you go. So I guess we can agree to disagree there. People seem to think that he'll be a lot cheaper than I think. All right. Well, then in that case, that's not a bad Weekend League, week 1 starter squad. Starter squad? Not starter squad, but you know what I mean. Another cool hybrid. I love it. I think Ndidi will be very expensive. Obviously, Anderson and Richarlison will be very expensive. But overall, I just think this team is fantastic. In a 4-2-3-1, this Porto looks great. Might be a little bit underpriced first because he's La Liga, second because of the 3-star skills. But, you know, you use him as a right cam, use Anderson as a left cam, use Richarlison as a central striker. And we're just talking 4-2-3-1 if it's OP or fun to use like it was in FIFA 20. Who knows? Maybe 4-3-3-4 like this would be a meta setup. I have no idea. But Madison will be very usable for quite a while as a central cam. Then Ndidi as your holding DM. Marino as your box-to-box. He looks great, by the way. You know, again, I feel like someone like this will be so much more expensive in the Premier League. And then I think the back line is usable too. I mean, Mr. T-Rex hands himself. Kepa might be a bad option in goal. But considering you don't really need a link to Mark Bartra, you could go with, what's his name, Mendy? Or maybe Hugo Lloris once you get a little bit more money as well. So the options are actually there thanks to the French link with Zuma. Not a bad setup at all. You just need a strong link to Zuma, of course. Moving on. This is another example of what I would argue is probably going to be a very cheap team, no? Outside, well, Lorente, Delaney, Thorgan Hazard, Scholes are going to be expensive-ish. Yeah, you could go Areola. Nacho Fernandez could be a little bit more expensive, but still, I just like the originality of this team. It's a very Spanish inspired squad. So once again, once you start improving the team and things start getting better, you can just swap players in and out. Better Spaniards for better, you know, whatever. Get yourself a Bellerin in at right back when you've got the coins, so on and so forth. I think it's a cool team. You know, slide Rodrigo in there. You might then at that point need... Get Rodrigo in here. Who else? I mean, Pablo Hernandez is going to be like an 84 rated player, right? For Leeds. So maybe Rodrigo and Pablo? Kappa? Anyways, options are open, which I think is cool. Another really cool team. Once again, probably going to be one of my favorite teams out of all of them built. La Liga, midfield and attack. Sorry, Serie A, midfield and attack. La Liga, defense. I think this is a really, really cool team. And one of the sleepers out there, boys, I'm not saying he's going to be like 1,000 coins, but this Ribéry is going to get so disrespected and so ignored by the community early days because he doesn't have high pace and because he's got terrible stamina. As a central cam, 5-star, 5-star, I think he will be the poor man's... I wouldn't go as far as Cruyff because obviously Cruyff has the stamina and the pace and stuff like that. But let's say like the poor man's Wesley Schneider, you know? I think he's going to be fantastic. And then the attack of Martinez and hopefully Lukaku doesn't feel like a fridge this year to move around. I love Lulic. Look at that. We're talking about, you know, well-rounded left mids and right mids. Lulic is definitely one of them. You could also argue that Victor Moses is as well. So I like them as wide players. Parolo and Barella are fantastic. I think for a first week FUT Champs team. And then that back line. I would argue maybe the only thing you'd want to do is put the slower Bartra through the middle and then have Moreno wide right. I know he's got high attacking work rates, but I feel like player instructions override work rates anyways. And then he's got a 3-star weak foot, he's got a 4-star weak foot, and he's got a 3-star, right? So yeah. So I would put slower Bartra through the middle, Moreno on the right, and then the 4-star weak-footed Nacho on the left. They're all right-footed. So that to me would be a perfectly put together squad. So moving on. Another team that I think looks fantastic but will surprise people for price. I think this Sissoko will make up almost half the price of the squad. I know he's 79 rated, but I really do believe this Sissoko will be like 20-30k. He looks like he's going to be super OP, high work rates, 3-star weak foot, 3-star skills. Hermoso's left-footed? Is Hermoso left-footed? Oh, Formosa's left-footed, then put him on the left and then Nacho on the right. Even better. Perfect. I think Nacho's left-footed too, right? But either way, he's going through the middle because he's slow. Nevertheless, I think another very cool team. Once again, even using this guy on 7 or with a manager, you can get him on 8 chem. Why not? Even for the first weekend league, he's looking like he'll be useful. 5'11", right? High work rates might be a little bit of a yikes, but great stats all around. Mignolet... with a basic chem style will still be usable, but might be a bit of a concern. I think Salvio's fine. And then it allows you to put your money into like Scholes. And I like this little hybrid he's got going on here too. Anyways, thought it was a cool team. Lacazette getting slapped down to an 83. Do you guys agree with that? Either Arsenal fans or Premier League fans? I don't know if I disagree all that much with the rating decrease. I don't know, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't watch Lacazette enough. Onwards and upwards, another what I would consider again a very expensive team when it comes to the defensive setup and the midfield setup, and not so much the attack. So I pass the question on to you guys. Would you rather see a team like this where big money is spent on Militao at center back and big money is spent in the DM setup with Llorente and Allen and relatively cheaply built attack? Would you rather have this? Like a more strong backline and DM setup and then weaker attackers? I don't know, man. I just feel like you're going to be really, really irritated with the lack of goal scoring. Anyways, moving on. Very similar here again. More spent, it seems like, on the backline. Well, Lucas is going to be expensive. I just like this hybrid, really. I feel like Aouar's card is so disrespected. Out of all the cards that have been released, I think this Aouar card is a ridiculously offensively bad card. I prefer a more expensive midfield. Yeah. Anyways, Allen, gonna be expensive. Obviously, Atal, gonna be expensive. Lucas, gonna be expensive. I think the rest of the team isn't really gonna be all that much. Aouar, if he was actually represented the way he should be, would be an expensive card, but he's not, so just EA things. And then finally, to finish things off for these 100K FUT Champs Week 1 squads, I just thought this was a cool team. Obviously, Jesus is going to be very expensive. If you're the dude that thinks Manolas is going to be 150K, you obviously disagree with this team because it's going to be over the price of the price point that I set for this squad review video. But I still think this will be very doable for 100 to 150K. I for sure agree that Manolas and Jesus will be expensive, and I think a lot of people would agree that this Donnarumma is going to be a lot of money, maybe even Romagnoli. But these three and Jesus will be a lot. I think everybody else will be cheap though. Lozano, I don't think will be as much as people expect. Malqui might be a bit of money. I don't think the trio of Talisca, Paulinho, and Augusto will be that much money. I don't think Talisca or Ismaili will really be that much. So I just thought it was like a fun use of relatively expensive and different players while looping in some cheaper options from the CSL. I think it's fantastic. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this review. I love doing these videos. Obviously these videos aren't really going to be going on much longer because we're now like 4 days away from the official launch of FIFA 21 with the web app. So we'll be grinding the web app as of Wednesday onwards, and then as of Friday we'll be on early access. So my god, the craziness of a new FIFA launch is almost upon us. Charity stream not far after that as well. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so very much for all the support on everything, and especially on Twitch and everything that we're doing in the build up to the charity stream. And we'll catch you on the flip side for another FIFA 21 video. I'm not sure what. Peace.